Hi, everybody. So
Hi.
I know it's like right at 6 o'clock, so I wanted to give everybody as much time as possible to get here. Um, I saw that we had a few people already in here. I can't see my screen at the moment, so I just wanted to let everybody know. Um, in order to be able to write on my handy dandy bulletin board here, I had to make sure that I am not able to see my screen. But I will get us going and introduce everybody,
Now,
and then we'll
Animal
start working.
Fauna, Animal Fauna, Animal Fauna, Animal Fauna.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how to say rain in Madagascar.
Interesting.
Animal Fauna, Animal Fauna. First,
Uh,
listen to me. Listen to listen to it.
what am I listening to? I
Violin.
think we have somebody that has a mic on.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. All right. Just wanted to be able to see everybody. Okay. I'll flip the camera back around when we're actually using that. Okay. So
This one. I'm gonna trust this one, Mom.
I'm going to ask if everybody can, let's see here. I'm going to mute people that aren't speaking just for right now, just so there isn't anything difficult to hear. All right, so welcome everybody. This is our very first Unity Coalition meeting. And I'm going to introduce myself really quick and the group that we're working with here. And then we're going to go around and have everyone else introduce themselves as well, if they'd like to. So I'm Rachel Steckman, and I'll be the speaker tonight. I started Logan County Indivisible just in time to join the fight against the proposed data center here in Logan County. And then once we had kind of grown a little bit and seen what all was going on in the county, seeing the incredible levels of bipartisan support and people being able to work with each other, we just we had to do more. So we launched the Unity Coalition to try and just kind of change the way that we have maybe, I don't want to say difficult conversations, but the ones that we were all kind of raised to be like, oh, we don't talk about politics and religion at the table. Anything that might be a little bit emotionally charged, even with like local politics, things like that, we're gonna we're gonna kind of break the tradition, and we're gonna talk about them, but we're gonna talk about them in a way that makes everyone feel like they belong and they're welcome at the table. So this group is going to be a safe place to ask questions. We'll discuss facts, share opinions, we'll disagree respectfully, and most importantly, we're going to find common ground in a world that is bent on dividing us all. So this first meeting, we're not going to have a guest, but in the future, we will have speakers from all sorts of viewpoints and experiences. We're going to have people from all demographics. We'll have faith leaders, people who've survived violence, people who have been unhoused, people who found God, people who left the church, healthcare workers, people who've gone from one political party to another. I think you get my point. we we want to give voices to people from all walks of life and foster a respectful discussion aimed not at debating or changing anyone's mind, since that is so much of what today's kind of political culture is surrounding, is debate. But we're trying to create mutual understanding and connection and build more bonds within our community, because left, right, center, it doesn't matter. We share the same community. We all care about our community, and we all want the best for us and the people around us. So does anybody have any questions before we dive in and get started with introductions? And just remember, you may have to unmute yourself. I'll just give everybody a couple of seconds. If anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute and go ahead and just ask. Otherwise, um, this is a collaborative group. So if everyone would like to go around and introduce themselves, you can turn on your camera, you can leave it off. Either way, you can just show your or just use your mic. You don't have to introduce yourself either, but I feel like it helps everybody to kind of get a little bit more of that sense of community if we all kind of know who we are and where we're coming from. Rhonda?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm trying to. Okay, I see there's 14 people in here, which is awesome and encouraging. My name is Rhonda Shelton. Most of you know me. I'm just happy to be here, and I thank Rachel for starting this. So let's go.
Thank you.
I'm Haley Vincent. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Um, Anyways, I am the co-chair with Rachel on the Indivisible of Logan County, and I am so grateful that Rachel and I are coming together and coming up with new ideas to try and unify our county in more and more ways, especially with the positive output that we made with finding a common ground with the data center. And we're definitely hoping to continue that and try and grow our community into more um, loving, welcoming, unified group of individuals that all want to share perspectives, share different viewpoints, and to be able to find ways to creatively come up with better solutions for our town, our county, Central Illinois in general, and try and make a community worth living in again.
Beautifully said. Thank you, Haley. I don't have a name for this person, but it looks like they're going under Samsung SM. You have your hand up, and I would love for you to introduce yourself. You may have to unmute your mic.
You may have to do it, Rachel. With
Let's
them
see
being
here.
through the phone, they may not have as many options.
All right, let's see. Unmute.
I think I've
There we
I
go.
think
There
I'm
we go. We
unmuted. Can you hear
gotcha.
me okay?
Yes.
Sorry. It's Shelly. Sorry. I just downloaded this app again because I didn't have it up. My name is Shelly Thomas. I have also been helping with the Indivisible group. And I'm super grateful for Rachel and Haley and tons of people who've been really helping with a number of things for the county. And I'm excited for what we're doing tonight and really talking about um, a whole bunch of bipartisan things with the county, and just really kind of emphasizing what we have in common as opposed to what it is that we disagree upon. Because I really think we always have had a number of things, and that the world wants to kind of pull us apart, but that we actually have a lot of things in common and that we can get a lot of things done if we actually focus on those specific things that we have in common. That's about it.
Beautiful. Thank you and welcome, Shelly.
Thanks.
All right. Let's see here. I'm just gonna see if there is. Would Carol like to introduce herself? I'm just gonna kind of go down the list. Anybody that would like to introduce themselves, you can either unmute, you can raise your hand. I don't know if everybody knows how to do that on Zoom.
Hello. Hey, I'm Roger Kane.
Hello.
glad to meet everyone that I've met so far between the party and Indivisible. Just everything. I think I found my people. But I found it hard to sit on my hands and not do anything, like a call to duty, which I think it's everyone's job to do that, but some people just don't care anymore. So thank you for all that you guys are doing. I know it's a lot of work, but I'm here to help any way I can.
Thank you, Roger, and welcome. All right, is there anybody else that would like to introduce themselves?
I'll introduce myself. My name is Kristen Arriaga. I am an attorney by profession, though I think I hate it. But we could get to that another time because that's not really relevant. But also, I am really excited about this because I live in the middle of the political spectrum, which is an interesting place to live because and sometimes you're having conversations with somebody and you're like, I don't think I agree with that. And they're like, oh, so you're one of them, right? And then it's like you're having conversations with somebody and you're like, I don't think I agree with that. It's like, do I really have a home? And so I think this is a good place where I can voice my opinions and share how I feel. And I feel like it'll be a good place where I can say, okay, I live in the middle. I kind of see why this person is saying this thing on the other side. I kind of see why this person is saying this thing on this side. And I don't know, referee, but this will be more of a gentle conversation. But I get it, right? And that's like from living in the middle and being there. And so I'm really excited for these conversations. And I really felt like the data center was very impactful in bringing us together in a world where we've been so separated for like 20 years now. And I just want to keep it going. So then I can have a home in both places instead of being without one.
Awesome. I love that. I love giving everybody a safe place to be, a home, a place to feel like they belong. So welcome, Kristen. We're glad to have you here. Anyone else like to introduce themselves? I'll give everybody just a second.
Hi, I'm Dara Entwistle, and looking forward to learning everybody's thoughts, beliefs, viewpoints, what changes, making things better in the county, and not just the data center, but anything else we can improve and work on and move past. So, yes. So, anyway, so thank you for putting this together.
Well, thank you and welcome, Dara. Glad to have you here. All right. Anybody else? Everyone's allowed to talk. Okay. Well, if we don't have any more introductions to do, I'm just going to check that nobody else has their hand raised. Okay. So totally fine. Since today we are trying to focus on finding common ground and kind of discover our similarities, I think it's important to acknowledge that there's a lot of different ways that we can go about doing that. And that finding common ground, it can mean a lot of different things to different people. So I think it helps if we are kind of all on the same page of what we're working for here in this particular group. Finding common ground doesn't necessarily mean changing someone's mind or trying to talk them out of their beliefs. It means allowing someone the space to express their beliefs or their views, and then also just kind of trying to see where they're coming from, even if you don't necessarily agree with them, but kind of getting down to the heart of, this is a good person in front of me. What would make them feel this particular way, even if it's not the same way that I would feel? More reflective than reactive. Do you have something to say, Haley?
Yeah, I was going to piggyback off of that. In that aspect, we want people to feel seen, feel heard, feel validated, and to regain that humanity aspect of things, because so much anymore is just dehumanizing from day to day. So we definitely want to just share perspectives and give opportunities for people to come up with creative ideas as well as to share their experiences and who they are and what it means to them for our community.
Beautiful. Yes. So in that sense, does anybody have kind of like any insight or personal like feeling on what finding common ground and looking for our similarities, finding that mutual understanding, what does that look like to you? Any example at all?
I would say that it means not necessarily agreeing with the other person, but understanding the circumstances in their life and just what their reasons for why they believe what they believe.
Absolutely. Kind of along the lines of, be kind to everyone you meet. You don't know what battles they're facing behind the scenes. We may have kind of a limited snapshot of what we're seeing of a person right in front of us that very moment, and we may not understand what it is that we're seeing. But I like the idea of embracing curiosity instead of judgment. I think that's
Yeah.
kind of where I want to jump off with things.
I agree, and I think also piggybacking off of that, it's also about not only just understanding where someone is coming from and why they believe what they believe, but understanding that opinion comes from a place of being a proud American. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, we love America, and so being a proud American and wanting the best for America and knowing that, the people on the other side of the aisle also think they're doing what's right. And sometimes I'm like, sitting in the middle and I'm just like, I don't know that both sides are right here or wrong, but finding that happy medium that we can all just go back to being happy Americans because we haven't been for a long time.
Very true. I think I see a hand up for Kevin. You may have to unmute. There you go.
So for me, obviously I'm the villain on the Facebook page. It's not that I'm for or against the data center. My stance on the data center is based on the community needs and the fact that some people think they're saving the farmland when in actuality the person that owns this land has said that and has made a commitment that there will never be another crop ever grown on this land. So my stance is, if that's the case, which is more beneficial to the county?
Why they feel that way.
Oh,
The
I think
data
we have-
center
hang on
or
one second.
300 acres of solar panels?
I appreciate you trying to discuss this particular issue. And if you'd like to talk about it, maybe a little bit further on in the meeting, then we could get there. I was kind of trying to lay some groundwork about the ways that we're going to try and engage in like more constructive dialogue. If you don't mind to just kind of hang on to that little nugget for a second. I don't know I can't see your name here.
I'm good.
There you are. Okay. Sorry, I thought you popped off here. Okay. Yeah, so I appreciate you bringing your differing perspective here, and I'm very glad that we can talk about it all together. So I want everybody to just kind of think about some of the ways that you would talk to a person that you really love about an issue that you know that they stand differently than you on, and maybe kind of come up with some ideas as to how you might try to approach that possibly difficult conversation but from a place of you are trying to stay connected to a person that you really genuinely care about and love.
I can't find my hand, so I'm gonna go ahead and speak. I think my general idea is like my husband and I personally, we fight fair and we speak out of respect. And I think it's speaking out of respect to everybody. And that
Yeah.
means no name calling. Um, just staying calm and speaking without name calling and without getting loud and angry.
Okay. Beautiful. Love it. Anyone else?
Actually listening, not waiting to speak, but to actually actively listen to the other person, so you can fully understand where they're coming from.
Love it. That was on the agenda tonight, so thank you very much.
I gotcha.
So I do have a number of people who have widely different viewpoints, political viewpoints as myself.
Hmm.
Many of them come from, some of them come from maybe even a religious affiliation. Um, and some are really just so ideological that they seem very party line. Like some seem to be just so very loyal to their party that that's what they're going to say.
Hmm.
And as myself, since I have very recently completely jumped in the opposite direction as these same friends and family who used to really root for their same agenda that they were all about. Um, Honestly, it's actually even harder for me to reconcile that because I am actually headed sharply away from those same things that they are involved in. But I happen to know that, for example, my friend who is also a very Christian friend, a very religious person, has a core value of um, she loves God, she loves people, she understands that if you love God, you have to love all of humanity and you have to practice um, goodness, love, and kindness towards those same people. And so, in my estimation, when we have discussions, we do our best to go back to how it is that what we find is going to best emulate love and care towards those same groups of people. And then, I mean, I have another family member who that's really not his primary love and his primary goal,
Hmm.
but he's very he's very left-brained, and so he's going to try to be very logistical. And so at the end of the day, you can really just explain data about, and honestly, that's where I'm at right now, is as opposed to following a belief system and just following that belief system to whatever I'm told to believe, to instead look at what does the data say? What do
Okay.
people who have entirely more qualifications than myself have? What do they say? What what does statistical data say? And let's look at all of that together and try to come to um, data together and not say and not dismiss data and say I have different data and I choose to look at a few different markers of data, but to generally look at those people who are most qualified in those areas. What do they say? What is most um, what is most reasonable for us to agree upon. And that's really kind of the two areas that I look at.
I love that. So I did not realize that I cannot mirror image my Zoom here. So I'm going to have to read off my little post-it note here so that I can actually see when people have a hand raised. So I've put up here respect, active listening, and then two different core values from what Shelley just said, data/facts, and then cooperation. So that's a pretty nice list so far, and I really like it. So let's add to it with Kristen, your comment.
So I was gonna say that I think it should be to commit to having the hard conversations,
Okay.
because I think a lot of people, myself included, back away from having conversations that they're that make them anxious, right? When I am in a group of people who are on the right, am I vocal about my beliefs that I have that are on the left? When I'm in a group of people who are on the left, am I vocal about my beliefs that are on the right? And that's a really hard thing for me to do. And I recognize why that can be hard for some other people as well. And so I think commit to having those conversations and commit to stating your beliefs genuinely, so that we can figure out where the middle ground is and where people are coming from.
I like that, the genuine and the commitment. I'm adding commitment, and I'm gonna say authenticity because genuineness isn't a word. And then I believe Darlene had her hand up. So go ahead. May have to unmute. I'm working on getting it unmuted. Hang on. Ask to unmute. All right, you should have an invite to unmute, Darlene.
I got it, I think.
Perfect.
Okay. I think one of the key things that maybe we don't present ourselves with when we talk to other people, because we're so focused on how we approach things, is open-mindedness.
Ooh, very lovely. Okay.
Yeah, I really think that we ourselves have to look internally a little bit to change our minds about how we're going to approach and how we're going to listen. So you have to have that open-mindedness.
Beautiful. Love it. And Dara, I see your hand up. Let me know if you need well, I guess you can't let me know if you need an invite. There you go. Okay.
I'll try to lower my hand after I'm done. Sorry, too many.
I gotcha.
At the bottom. No, I agree, like what Shelley said with data, but then again, I think we need to really, when someone is presenting facts, and I'm going to use this as an example, what we're facing right now in the livestock industry is the new world screw worm.
Yes.
We have a mess coming up here. Canada has already banned livestock that has originated coming out of Texas. It's trickling up. It's obviously, don't anybody be scared, your meat will be okay. It's just what we are facing with livestock. So moving forward, what's going on is you've got the USDA saying one thing, this is how we're going to treat it. And then you've got Department of Ag in Texas saying, no, you've been behind the 8 ball. And so obviously they've been clashing and trying to get ahead of this. And, so I think, like all of you said, we need to respect all the facts with everybody. But then again, some people say, well, I found this study. Well, is it a real study, or is it manipulated to lead you this way or that way? So I'm just kind of piggybacking on what Shelley said, that sort of thing. But I'm a fact person. I've been in journalism since grade school. That's going to date me. I used to have my own newspaper column in the Pekin Daily Times. So
would you say accuracy is kind of what you're going for there?
I have to have accuracy, but then again, not trying to persuade somebody to go your way, but someone just taking a step back and going, oh, okay, you found that out and these are, okay, that is the facts, great. And then respect that. I think that is not happening in general with anything nowadays. And people have been closed-minded, closed-lipped, and we've relied on Google to diagnose a medical condition and, the whole shebangs, or, treating livestock, in these Facebook
Okay.
groups. Google said this. No, go see a veterinarian right now. But that's my point is let's, sometimes if it's on Google, it's not always the God's honest truth is my, so anyway, sorry, I rambled. I'll be quiet.
Perfect.
We can move on. So, but
Oh
anyway.
no, we always want input. So because of your statement there, I'm adding in accuracy and
Mhm.
acceptance.
Yep.
I think
Yep.
those are very good values.
And strong facts. Yes. Mhm.
Yes.
Trust.
And to go hand in hand with the data and facts. Yes.
Trust but verify.
Yes.
With, when you trust the information that you're being presented, make sure you're able to verify it, with, accuracy and just being able to, I pulled up the meeting chat and I've been monitoring it too, Rachel, and trying to get some
Thank
engagement
you.
in there. But like after I put trust but verify, Faith had mentioned cite your sources, and to
Perfect.
allow for people to be able to, not only trust you, but to verify your information. And
Beautiful.
then
Thank you, Faith, and thank you, Haley, for sharing.
Kevin, you had mentioned something in the chat. Do you want to go off mute and say it yourself, or would you like me to relay that to anybody who can't see the chat?
You can relay it.
Okay. Kevin mentioned talk to a person, not at them. And I think that that's a really important piece in this environment, is so that way we can respect other people by, talking to them and instead of just talking at them. And that is a big problem in trying to communicate with people that have different beliefs because we forget to talk to them instead of at them.
Beautiful.
I really like what Haley added with the trust but verify, and also what Dara's trying to say too, as far as sources go, because we really live in a postmodern world where our culture really likes to pick who our news sources are. We choose who our um, authority sources are. It's really, postmodernism is really a loss of authority. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to who specializes in what. And we really have to respect, we should really respect all voices, but it's really comes down to those peer-reviewed studies and looking at all of the data as opposed to these cherry-picked sources, like Dara was saying. But that whole trust but verify is really important because that's a big reason why the general public can't agree on anything because we're all picking who it is we want to listen to. And that's according to political sources, news sources, etc. But at the end of the day, it comes down to who's qualified to address whatever subject we're talking about at whatever time it is, and citing those sources also, like Haley was saying. That's what I'm thinking.
So would you say reputable sources? Is that kind of what we're looking
Absolutely.
for here? Okay.
Yeah, reputable sources, and like who has the qualifications to speak to given topics.
Perfect. And I also have in here, I like what you said about no cherry picking. So that's a good one too. So, and then Dara, I believe you have your hand up. So go ahead and unmute.
The one key thing I think, and it comes from being a parent, as we all know, I mean, we've got, or siblings, or not, or you know where I'm coming from when I say this. You cannot make anybody 100% happy, meaning you just can't take the whole, I'll just pick on the county. You cannot make everybody in Logan County happy. Okay. Someone is always going to be unhappy. Does that stink? Yes. I'm the person, I do want to make people happy. How can, you know, appease somebody and please somebody. However, this day and age, you just kind of got to take a step back and realize you're not going to make everyone happy. However, for those that are not happy, talk to them, try to soften it up. How can you alleviate it? How can you help them, etc. That's where I'm coming from, with things too. I just, at the end of the day, we know we're not going to make everybody happy.
Absolutely. So while you were talking, I added in compromise.
Mhm.
Compromise means everybody's a little bit unhappy, but at the end of the day, everybody gets something out of it, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Perfect. Anyone else? Okay,
Just
real
trying
quick,
to
I'm going to
bridge that gap. That's what it all boils down to, is bridging that gap and differences to becoming more understanding rather than differences.
Okay, real quick here, I'm going to summarize what we've got on the board here.
Really quick, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Rachel. Marianne had also put something in the chat.
Oh, yes.
And it's realized that nobody knows everything and everybody gets it wrong sometimes. It's okay to admit you're wrong and to adjust your opinions or beliefs accordingly.
All right, I'm going to add in okay to be wrong. All right, and it looks like Faith also has her hand up, so please feel free to unmute.
Hi, sorry. My son keeps playing an ice cream truck song, so I don't know if I will get through this without him doing it again. But I was just gonna say, in relation to sources, another thing to think about just objectively is when you read a title even of a source, how do you think the writer is trying to make you feel with that? And then maybe kind of consider that that might be the way that they're leaning in their reporting. So just objectively think about, if you're reading these words, what do they want me to feel from this? And maybe kind of go into that source with the recognition that it might be a little bit leaning toward a certain way, so that you can still get the facts and read it, but you'll know that that's kind of the intention behind it. And sometimes people do that on purpose, and sometimes it's not on purpose. There's just implicit bias, and sometimes it's accidental, but
Yes.
it's just good to think about sources that way.
I love that. So I've just added recognized bias to our checklist here. So I'm just going to summarize here, and then I'll give everybody another opportunity to add anything. So we want to bridge gaps in understanding. We want to make sure that everyone knows it's okay to be wrong and to change your mind. We want to make sure everybody knows how to recognize bias. We want to make sure everybody feels respected. We want our information shared to be accurate. We want to engage in active listening with each other when we're trying to bridge those gaps in understanding. And we want to be able to accept other people's differing views besides ours without trying to change someone else's mind. And of course, we want to make sure that we're sharing facts and data, and we already kind of touched on the accuracy part of that. And then we want to be cooperative in what we're doing. If we're constantly in a combative mindset, we can't work together on anything because, there's no teamwork there. And then commitment to having the uncomfortable conversations. Authenticity when you are having those conversations. Open-mindedness, being willing to accept someone else may have a valid point. And then trust but verify, which goes hand in hand with citing our sources. So if you're going to give a statistic or whatever, I'd really like to know where you got that so that I can trust you, but verify. And then talking to people, not at people. Does everybody know kind of what we mean by that? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to take that as a yes. Okay. And then we don't want to cherry pick things. We don't want to just pick, oh, okay, well, this tiny little section of an article works for me, but not this part over here, because the entire thing as a whole, that's kind of the representative work there. Obviously, not just for articles, but other things as well. And we want to use reputable sources for our facts. And we always want to be open to compromise so that even on a difficult issue where there may be extremes on one side or the other, everybody kind of gives up a little bit of something, but everybody also gains a little bit of something. Are there any other kind of ideas that anybody has for how you would approach a difficult conversation with someone that you really care about and want to keep working on a relationship with?
I just have one more thing. I was also going to say, you could probably hear the ice cream truck now. I was also going to say that just assume their intentions are not to be misleading or judgmental or angry. Just assume that there's positive intentions behind it. Until proven otherwise, at least. I mean, I think anybody that's here at this meeting is not going to have negative intentions for the county, I wouldn't think, or the city or the central Illinois area. So just assume positive intentions.
I like that. Assume good intentions. That's a really good one, because a lot of conflict can arise simply from a simple misunderstanding of where someone is coming from. Dara.
But none of this applies to my marriage. So just making this clear. Got it, girls? Just everybody, Kevin, sorry. No, this does not apply to my marriage. I'm always right there.
Totally fair.
Just stating. Trying to make everybody laugh. Okay, carry on.
All right. Well then, okay, so let's see here. Has anybody ever applied any of these types of things that we've been talking about in a real, like, day-to-day life type situation, somewhere where you had to have the difficult conversation that maybe you wouldn't necessarily want to?
Yes. Almost every week. No, seriously, and not the marriage, because I'm always right. No, used to work in long-term care for over 20 years. And then now I own my health insurance agency. And yes, dealing with it's awesome dealing with different people because you get to learn from everybody. And nobody's better than anyone. And, it's nice meeting folks and, having clients all over the United States as well. There's not, nothing against Logan County, but, it's nice. You can learn so much and appreciate so much and value someone else's values. So
beautifully said. And while you were speaking, I made sure to add everyone is equal for here. I think that's a wonderful way of starting any kind of interaction, is we all want to remember that at the end of the day, we're all equal, we're all on the same team, and we're all just kind of trying to get through life.
We all live on the same planet.
Yes.
But you guys can have Jerry, my husband. I'm just saying. I am going to pick on him heavily. Second marriage, both of us. He's 76. I'm 54. Known him since I was 8. Yes. Carry on, girls. Go ahead.
I was going to add, first off, I loved your comment. I just wasn't unmuted to laugh, Dara. So there's that. And then I was going to say, yeah, I do this a lot actually with my husband because he doesn't have nearly any of the beliefs I do, from one of the sides that I'm on. And he also, which I'm not opposed to people getting their news from Facebook. There's been a great way of getting your news from Facebook that we've learned recently, that it rallies people together. However, you do have to, all right, where is this from? Is this a real quote? Do you look it up? And so my job in our marriage has become that I am the source checker. He will say, I heard this thing today. And I'll say, Nick, that is not real. And he will say, well, did you look it up? And I said, I don't feel the need to. That's not real. And he said, please look it up. And actually, one time it was real, and that was kind of sad. But overall, it's usually not real. And so, yeah, on a regular basis in my marriage, I'm the source checker. Is this thing that you saw on Facebook true?
I like that. Yes. Anyone else have any examples for us?
Well, I will chime in on this because a year ago I had a difficult conversation with my father, actually. And in in the moment, I forgot all of these skills that we and the values that are on this post-it. I let my emotions get the better of me, and it made things worse. But when we both came at it at a cool, level-minded head and remembered some of these things, we were able to actually get through some of the information. So, you know, we're not always going to be able to approach every conversation with these things, but I can attest to the fact that these things here do make a difference when we're talking about difficult conversations with people, because I've done it the wrong way and I've done it the right way with, having those conversations. And sometimes you have to admit you're wrong, and then reapproach the conversation from a different perspective, a different, talking to the person rather than at them. And I think that you know, it, it's something important to remember, and it's hard to do it when you're in the heat of the moment. But opportunities like we have here in this group that, we're going to be doing more of these, it'll give us an opportunity to practice this in a safe space so that when we do have those difficult conversations with people that we know out and about or in any conversation, whether it be our professional or personal life, it'll be easier and almost more natural to remember these things rather than in that heat of a moment completely forgetting everything.
Yeah, building muscle memory just like you would if you were
Yes.
trying to be a gymnast. I love that. Yes. And it's very easy when you're dealing, especially with an emotionally charged situation. It's very easy for these skills to go right out your brain. So I'm sorry, I should ask, is there anybody else that has a different example that they'd like to share before I move on to my next little topic here? Sorry, my cat decided to chime in. All right. So I think that that finding common ground is an awful lot like the quote, "Be curious, not judgmental." And it's falsely attributed to Walt Whitman, but he actually didn't say it. That still doesn't make the quote any less meaningful, at least to me. It didn't have to come from somebody super special for it to be meaningful. So I think that when we first meet somebody and we make that snap judgment, we're making a lot of assumptions on what's most likely a tiny limited view of a person's experience. And being curious instead of judgmental doesn't necessarily mean asking questions out loud, but it can be, and I'm going to do that in a minute. But it can also mean that you just, instead of, like, say you're having an interaction with someone and it kind of goes a little sideways and you're a little taken aback, instead of immediately jumping to being defensive or angry or any negativity, it's kind of giving you that 1 second pause to just think to yourself, I wonder. And that can be, I wonder why this person just said that. I wonder if they're going through something that might be affecting the way that they're looking at things or the way that they're interacting with me right now. It's just kind of giving yourself an extra second to just check in and be like, hey, okay, that wasn't very pleasant, but I'm sure there's probably a reason for it. And instead of jumping to anger, now we're trying to bridge understanding. Hey, bud, what's going on here? Is there something you'd like to talk about? Or did you mean to say that way? Or did you mean to hurt my feelings with that? Or whatever the case may be. And I think that kind of segues beautifully into the active listening, which is Kevin still here? Are you still here, Kevin?
Yes.
Okay. If you would oblige me, I'd love to be able to kind of demonstrate the active listening with what you were saying about the data center stuff. I would love to hear your side and have a conversation about something that's kind of emotionally charged, especially in Logan County right now, if you're up for it.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So active listening, it means a few different things. I'm just going to give everybody a rundown here before we have this conversation here. It means being fully present and engaged in good faith so that you can really try and understand what someone says and what they mean. So it also means that you're trying to ask kind and open-ended questions. You're trying to reflect on what's happening here. You're giving eye contact, you're engaging with the person, you're making them know that what they are saying and what's happening here is important and it matters to you. You're validating without even saying a word. And you're focusing on listening to understand rather than to react. So you're not thinking about the next point that you're going to make. You're not thinking about this thing that you really want to make sure that you don't forget to say. You are just absorbing what it is that this other person has to say. And then when it's your turn to speak, you'll get your chance to say what you'd like to. And just kind of leaving space for everybody in the conversation. And that strengthens the communication and it builds trust in that conversation. So Kevin, I would love to give you the floor here and tell us all, I guess, just your perspective on the data center, if that's all right with you.
So those of you that know me, I've been an elected official for, I might be the longest serving elected official in Logan County at this point. I was on the county board for over a decade during all the windmill and solar panel discussions, the ordinances, everything it took for those to go in. Also being in government, I have inside, not that I want it, on the financial stability of the city of Lincoln and the county. So my thoughts on the data center is this, and realize I gain nothing from this. I live in the city, so but I'm looking out for the whole of the county. As stated earlier, we know that this property is never going to be farmland ever again. So that brings me to the thought of, if it's going to be something industrial, whether it be 300 acres of solar panels, battery storage, or a data center that will take up less space, what is more financially beneficial to the county as a whole? And quite obviously, that is a data center based on the tax revenue on property taxes, not the promises that they make, on actual factual money. So that's why I am in favor of it, only because I know that this is never going to be farmland again, and I'm trying to get financial stability for that area of the county, which may trickle over into the county as a whole.
Okay. Was that your whole thought? I don't want to interrupt.
No, I got a lot of thoughts. I just thought I'd wait
I
and
just
see if
meant
there's
that
any
one particular
questions.
thought before I respond.
Yeah. Go ahead
Okay.
and respond.
So I appreciate the insight on the fact that especially that the land is we're being told that it won't be agricultural anymore, that there won't be any more crops on it. So from my perspective, that sounds an awful lot like we have kind of an opportunity there to use that land for something maybe other than agriculture, but maybe something that even benefits the people of Logan County even more. And that makes me wonder if there has been any kind of discussion or consideration of any other kind of projects besides the data center or the solar, the battery, or whatever, because arguably most of Logan County wants neither. So is there this secret third mystery option that we could try pursuing instead?
Well, can I respond?
Yeah, absolutely.
That you would have to have that discussion with the landowner who
Mhm.
does not live in Illinois. He has two entities knocking on his door, both of them with
Mhm.
large checkbooks. The way I understand it is he's giving the data center the opportunity, but if the data center falls through, it will become a solar field with battery storage capabilities. And I don't know if people understand what battery storage is. It's not what you think. It's not storing batteries. It's an industrial park only with a lot more solar panels. So in the discussion with the mayor of Latham in this, I had no idea was going to be such a topic of secret meeting because all I got was an invite, so I went. The mayor of Latham realizes that this land is going to be developed. So again, there's a large group of people like myself that is of the mindset of what is more beneficial to the county as a whole if the land is going to be developed.
Thank you. Kristen, I see you have a hand up. Did you have a question or a comment?
I had a comment about the data centers as well, because I do understand the perspective that Kevin is coming from in regard to that. I can see the benefits that this could have, right? I could even see the benefits that Hut 8 could bring. But my concern isn't necessarily with data centers as a whole, whereas I have concerns with the ordinance that we have written and how fast we've pushed this through. I don't think, I'm not saying I'm anti data center as much as I think the world would think that I am. I'm more so anti moving it through at such a fast speed that we're not protecting the people who will be around the data center. Because data centers are a likelihood somewhere. And I'm not happy with the ordinance because I think there could have been more put in the ordinance, like Aurora, Illinois had put in an ordinance that made that required 24-hour monitoring of the noise, and reports that went back to the county. And I think we could have done something like that, but we didn't put that in our ordinance. And then with Hut 8, I have a lot of concerns because they came in and they said, we are here to benefit the county. Nobody does anything. No billion-dollar company is going to do something for our county out of the goodness of their hearts. They are going to be making millions, if not billions of dollars off of our small county. And they've already threatened litigation. So all this money that they're giving us, I haven't said this because it came to me recently as a thought that I had, but all this money that they're giving us, we're going to have to put a large chunk of it aside for legal fees because they came to us because they thought we didn't have the ability to enforce any agreement or any ordinance that we end up putting in. And so if we're going to fight $1 billion company, we're going to have bigger, stronger lawyers capable of fighting them and enforcing our ordinance if we're going to be dealing with HUD 8. And so I'm not saying no to the data center necessarily. I'm saying no to them, and I'm saying no to the ordinance we have until we can get something right.
Totally fair. Thank you very much for your perspective. I want to let Kevin respond, and then I'm going to let Darlene speak, and then Haley. Sorry, we've got a couple of people with their hands up. So Kevin, if you'd like to, oh, you're already unmuted. Go ahead and respond if you'd like.
Okay, so this, I don't want to sound like I'm talking at people. This is the way it's supposed to work. So we started with a one-page, the county started with a one-page ordinance on data centers. We had, those of you that don't know me, I'm the chairman of regional planning. So we added the word data center to the county language. They started out with a one-page ordinance. Once it went through a team of lawyers, it became a 12-page ordinance. Our ordinance, as it stands right now, is far stricter than 90% of them in the state. We even have counties wanting to look at our ordinance. If we would have passed it, we would have had greater stability, like Lake County and that. So a quick lesson is this. The county should have passed the ordinance the other night. By passing the ordinance, then the county has the ability to put restrictions, what we call conditions, on any construction. So when she said, studies, this is what we discussed in that Saturday meeting, is what kind of restrictions would we put on HUT 8? And being the fact that I was there for all the wind farm ordinances, each wind farm, we started with the original wind farm ordinance, and then each wind farm had their own conditions put on them based on their height, their construction, the area they were going to go in. So one of my suggestions, even though it got voted down, was that we would put environmental studies on HUT 8, water use studies on HUT 8, lighting studies on HUT 8. I totally agree with the noise ordinance, but that is what she said, and I didn't catch her name. That's what she said earlier, but that would have been a condition put on HUT 8 for them to be granted their approval to build. So you have to take each project and look at it its own way instead of boilerplating an ordinance. What the county should have done was pass their boilerplated ordinance and then took suggestions on what needed to be done to put the conditions on HUT 8 to be able to, they have to meet all those conditions before they're granted the construction permit. Another one of those things we discussed in that Saturday meeting was the noise. And we were discussing that the nearest house is 3/4 of a mile away. The Farm Bureau president was there. I don't know his name. There's a very large farmer that was from Hartsburg. I believe the reason he was invited is he was involved in the wind farms up by Hartsburg when they first got built. We wanted his perspective, was to put these restrictions on HUD 8 to where the noise would be monitored, but you can't put restrictions that are so strict that they would end up suing us in court. So like we came up with large hog operations run between 50 and 70 decibels. So if they stayed below that from a certain distance, then they would meet that condition. I would have, if I personally was on the county board, make them build an earthen berm around it so that it directs the noise more upward instead of outward, where you get infrasound that travels long distances. So, I'll stop there because I'll ramble on forever. If anybody's got questions, part of the reason I chimed in here is I actually have the experience of what it takes to allow these large entities to come into town and the restrictions that you do need to put on them that they have to meet. You put it in writing, or they don't get the permit, and you make it legally bound to where you can shut them down or fine them if they don't maintain those conditions.
Kevin, I have a question. Since the ordinance did not pass, what does that mean now? I mean, has the county opened them up for basically anything?
In my opinion, yes. We now have less restrictions that we can put on them because we don't have an ordinance in place where we can point at it and say, if you want to apply, this is our ordinance, and it would become conditional use, and you put the conditions on. One of them in particular that I remember was Top Hat was having Top Hat is the first wind farm in the Mount Pulaski area, for those that are listening. Top Hat was having a tremendous problem with there being 700-foot towers, and we were putting 1,500-foot setbacks on them. They had to move 15 or 20 towers because we had the rules that if the tower fell down, it had to be 1.5 times the distance from any structure or roadway. So those were the kind of restrictions that we put on that we then told them, you either meet this restriction or you don't get the permit. And all of the studies that we made Top Hat do, and in sequential add-ons like Enel and Sugar Creek and those other wind farms, is we made them pay for every one of them studies so that the taxpayers weren't burdened. Now, I want to step back. It was third party. They didn't get to pick the company. We chose the company that did the study. We just made them pay for it.
And that's from what I remember the other night, that's what was in that ordinance we're getting ready to pass, is that, well, let me take that back. Hut 8 or whatever data center company cannot name the company to do the study. It would be up to, if I remember what JR said, to the board saying, okay, here's the company. But now, since that ordinance didn't pass, and I looked at what we have on the books right now, there's nothing, because there's nothing mentioning data centers. So we've, as a county now, and you can say, I'm going to say shame on our board, we don't have anything. We don't have any leg to stand on, correct? I'm not speaking ill of Hut 8. That's not what I'm saying. I'm speaking ill of, we don't have an ordinance, period. So somebody can come in with a data center and build right next to the city, correct, Kevin?
That's a little different than what the process would actually entail. But as much as I appreciate the discussion of the innermost details,
I want Kevin to address that, because there is not an ordinance that says data center.
So anybody that drives through Lincoln knows that a huge, gigantic solar farm went up next to the Dollar General on Lemon Street.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that happened is the city of Lincoln did not have any language in any ordinance against solar panels. So since the property met the criteria of building something like that, and that's because Dollar General was already there, and the language in our ag zoning in the county is kind of the same way. It's vague, that we had no choice but to allow them to build that solar field on Limit Street. Now, immediately the very next day, we started in on a solar ordinance, passed one to get a boilerplate ordinance passed into place. And since then, we went down and we put fencing requirements and setback requirements and angle requirements and glare requirements. And believe it or not, the city of Lincoln has, I shouldn't say denied, the companies wanting to build other solar places here in town could not meet those restrictions, so they did not build. Tremont Bank was one of the main ones. That's why the
appreciate that.
ordinance was important.
All right, we have
Right,
a
I was
couple of
getting-
other questions here that that have been waiting for a while. So Darlene, you had your hand up first. Would you like to pop in here real quick?
I would. So this is kind of mainstreamed off from where I think Kevin was first going, but I would like to clearly state that we have a 12-month moratorium on data centers in Logan County, which means nothing can be done with data centers for 12 months. This was given with the intent of hoping that our board would do their due diligence. Now, I will come back to this because I'm sorry, I have no faith in the ordinance written by the board. And I state that I have no faith in it because of the fact that there are windmill ordinances that very clearly state that if windmills are not in good working order and cause any kind of pollution, that they will be fined. And I already know for fact that there are windmills out there that people from Logan County have been calling the board about to ask for help to get them repaired. And it's been a long period of time with a very well-written ordinance that has never been held to fruition. So how can I have faith in an ordinance written by the board when they cannot keep the ordinances in check for what they have and hold anyone accountable to it? Which to me says that Hut 8 is going to own Logan County.
Hey,
Well,
Darlene, Darlene, real quick, I want to give you a quick update. Then Kevin, I will. I live in the vicinity of those couple of those wind towers that was reported at one of the board meetings. Anyway, here recently, long story short, they are out there repairing it finally. So I just wanted to let you know. So
now I do know that they are being repaired, but my point is, how much money did we lose in revenue for all of the time that they were not in compliance? And why was nothing done about it?
oh no, I agree with you. I just wanted to give you a update that I live by those, and they're finally getting repaired. So yes.
I want to state that the board did not write the ordinance that I'm talking about. It was sent away and a group of lawyers it was not drawn up in Logan County. It was a ordinance that Brad Hauge and others sent to lawyers that draw up those kind of things, and they came up with it. I wouldn't trust an ordinance that's wrote by the county board either.
Okay,
it would be a half a page.
But in your saying that, did they not feel that they had to hold people in compliance to the ordinance, and so therefore it wasn't done?
They absolutely should have. Now what you're complaining about is a valid complaint, but it's directed in the wrong direction. To me, if and we have a zoning officer here in Lincoln. If and I don't know the scope of Alan Green's position, whether he's the one that's supposed to enforce things or not, but you are correct. If a company is not in compliant, there should be fines levied And all of this is written in the ordinance, like decommissioning plans or whatever. Now, let's be realistic. It's a $3 million wind tower. If something goes bad, they're not going out there in an hour to repair it, but they should shut it down and not allow it to damage or pollute the area until they have time to repair it. I work in the automotive industry, and logistics for getting parts is difficult. But I do agree that the first thing they should do is shut it down. If it is leaking fluid or whatever, they should correct that immediately. And then it should not turn again until they repair whatever they're going to repair. If they neglect it, then that's when the fine should come into play, because things break. You can't start fining somebody just because it breaks. You start fining them when they neglect it and don't follow through with the ordinance. But again, as stated, we had a very strong 12-page boilerplate ordinance that could have been passed, and then the county could have put all kinds of conditions on whatever data center is coming forward that they would have to meet.
Well, and see,
I would,
thank you, Kevin, because I can appreciate what you're saying there. But the conversation about the data center, that didn't just end because the ordinance wasn't voted in that particular night. We were hoping for it to go back to committee. We were hoping to work on it more. So the county isn't necessarily just throwing the baby out with the bathwater, so to say. The people are wanting more input. We're wanting more done before we get to that point. So I hope you can see where we're coming from, where it's kind of like, okay, this is a bit of a whiplash here, having just been granted this moratorium, and then immediately having it questioned and having this type of the ordinance pushed through when we were supposed to be given more time to keep working on it. And I want to let Haley give her comment as well, because she's been very patiently waiting for quite some time.
Well, I wanted to first off say, Kevin, thank you very much for attending this and being willing to share your perspective, because you do hold a unique perspective that we may not have understood before, as far as your experience and what all was discussed. I was unaware that it was brought up that it was a 12-page ordinance to vote, and that it wasn't, that our board had made recommendations on, our 2-page ordinance, and then it was more broad on that aspect, and then it was more narrowed in with everything. So, um, Kevin, thank you very much for helping clarify some of that information. And I do want to say thank you for also, you know, looking at it from multiple different perspectives. And I think that, having an opportunity to engage the community in meaningful conversations like we're having tonight, to where we can actively listen and hear from the other side that are in support of the data center, is definitely helpful in understanding both perspectives, and understanding, that just because, it's proposed in this way doesn't mean that we can't make conditions to make it stronger, and more protective of our community. So, Kevin, from what I'm understanding, is your concerns are that, our long-term economic stability is of your utmost concern, as well as the opportunity to optimize the opportunities that are being presented currently or that are known currently. And I think the biggest problem in our community and our society as a whole is there's so much disconnect between the citizens and the people that we elect to represent us. And there's not enough transparency and collaboration between the entities. And I think that that's where our society is falling short, is there's not enough engagement and an aspect of being able to have that in between, having that opportunity to be involved, but and share our input, because there's been so much time over the past several months where our input is being shared and it's not even being acknowledged, or validated. So for you to be here and bring up your perspective and your perspective and concerns and beliefs and values on it are very important. So I wanted to just mention that I really appreciate it, Kevin.
Can I clarify something?
Absolutely.
So the big picture here is, and I hear you guys. I hear that you want to work on an ordinance and you didn't want it rushed through.
Mhm.
But the way this is going to sound crazy, but I'm going to try to explain this without talking down to people. Only because I've been there. I had to learn the hard way when I first got appointed to public office. So to simplify this, literally the county board could have passed an ordinance that simply said a data center requires a conditional use permit, period. That's all it had to say, because at that point, Hut 8 or anybody else would have applied for a permit. And then at that point, the county would say, okay, where are you going to build? What's it going to be? Blah, blah, blah. And then start putting the conditions on. So for me, the 12-page document is a wonderful document. It should have been passed, with the fact that it then would allow your input, data input, studies, because it would then allow the county to put conditions on the data center, which would have then immediately slowed it down, because we would have had to research the kind of conditions on where it's going to go, what it's going to be, height, weight, whatever you want to name it. So I guess I'm just trying to clarify. It was not a bad document. It was the starting document. It was the first page of a book that could have been written.
Well, I think here's the biggest disconnect and the biggest cause of the debate and the difference in opinion on the data center and its nature and all of this process is, this is the first time that I have ever heard somebody break it down and say, this is what we're trying to do, and
Do I have a
here's
clapping
why.
emoji? Can I throw a clapping emoji in there? I've been trying to explain this. I'm not very good on Facebook. I would
No,
love to
I
just
mean,
met in a coffee shop and had this conversation of, this is the way government
absolutely.
works.
Exactly. And that's what I'm trying to say as well, is I think that the problem with all of this is that there's so many people that are opposed to it, and they don't have the perspective or the understanding or the knowledge of the process, and to be so disconnected, and for us to be voicing our concerns about our disdain for the data center, but no one actually taking the opportunity to say, here's what we're trying to do. It's always been it almost feels like it is what it is, and we're going to do what we think is in the best interest and not explaining why it's in the best interest. And I think that that's where a huge distrust is coming from, is the transparency, the honest conversation isn't being able to be had because no one's willing to have these difficult conversations. And having, a safe space to have these conversations is important, especially nowadays when there are so many politicized and impactful um, issues at hand. So, I on a side note, Kevin, I would love to have coffee sometime and further understand the process and all of this. If we can make that happen at some point, I would love to and be able to share the information and try and bridge some of that gap. So, because I am a precinct committee person, I would love to be more involved in being able to relay some of that information. And so I glad you're here tonight so we can kind of bridge that gap and develop that rapport and that relationship to be able to work together going forward.
I just want to clarify, my phone number is public knowledge. As everybody saw, I posted it on the Facebook page. I'm not afraid to have a conversation with people. And quite honestly, I think a bigger problem right now is you have so many new county board members. I called a couple trying to explain the process, and one of them after the vote called me, and unfortunately his vote was based on the fact he's afraid of not being elected 4 years from now. I'm like, well, holy cow, why are you in public office as all you're worried about is an election?
Right.
Kristen, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I did. So I will say too, as soon as I got involved in this data center stuff, I met with Pete and Greg from HUD 8 and sat down and had a conversation with them. And actually, some of that conversation relieved some of the fears that I had about utilities going up and about water usage. However, that conversation, I'll go back to the noise ordinance, did not relieve some of my fears about some other issues that I had. Having said that, though, I heard the comment before, and I heard it today from you, Kevin, about saying that, other counties have reached out asking us about our ordinance. But, if I ever wanted to copy off of someone's paper, I would need to know that their information was right first. And, I'm not saying that we've gotten it all wrong. I actually think we got a lot right. And I think at the last board meeting, although it wasn't voted in, I think that a lot of the changes that were made were very intellectual and appropriate changes. But I just don't think just because other counties have said, hey, this is good, I want it to be exceptional, right? And so I don't think our ordinance is the strongest it can be. I had mentioned earlier about Aurora that they have in their ordinance a requirement of 24-hour noise reporting. And that is not overly restrictive because they have it in their ordinance. We could totally do that. There's nothing stopping us.
Absolutely.
And I think the other thing is my big concern as an attorney in saying for data centers, conditional use permit is required and then just being done, or that's just like an overarching, but the idea of a conditional use permit as a fallback concerns me because I like everything in writing. And so if I can get it in writing, how I feel and what I want to have for every data center, or every megawatt data center, um, then I want that to happen. So there's no question later about what is going to be the conditions because we've done the research now and we've put in the work now that we know these are all the things we don't want for a megawatt data center. And then the other thing is, there was a mention of, well, if we do, then we could do research on the conditions. My concern, and I'll speak for myself, but I think I know a lot of people that are against the Dana Center would agree with me on this one, is how fast this went through. And this went through pretty quickly. And there wasn't enough time to do the research. The impact study was never done. And although we've incorporated that now into our ordinance, or once we pass one, it's concerning to that we have distrust now, that we're being told, oh, we're going to put a moratorium to do an impact study. Impact study isn't done. We're just going to move forward with the ordinance. I don't know that I can trust the people that I've voted in to represent me and say that they're going to do that research, because they said they were and they didn't, and that there's a distrust there. And the last thing I wanted to say is I'm not super concerned about the fact that we didn't pass this ordinance, because the land right now isn't zoned properly for them to submit a conditional use permit request or to submit an application without having to rezone it, which is why they submitted their application and an application to rezone the land. It's all in our court. So if our county board says, no, we're not going to rezone the land, then their application dies. If the county board says, we're going to rezone the land, but we're not accepting your application, that's another option. Or the third option is, and I don't know where Brad stands on whether or not our moratorium is sound and will be able to stand, but right now there's also the moratorium in place. I'm not super concerned about the fact that we haven't passed an ordinance. I think we need to do a little bit more research, but that's my opinion.
I love the sharing of opinions, very respectful. Dara, you've had your hand up for a while as well. Oh, what happened? Oh, okay.
Sorry about that. Did anybody get a copy of the ordinance, the 12-page ordinance from the attorneys that the county had?
I was trying to find it on my regional planning
But
emails, but
Rhonda, did you, or Rachel, did you get a copy of it?
I believe Sustain Logan County Communities, somebody there has it.
Okay. Well, I'm just
sorry,
getting,
the word popped out of my head.
oh, no worries. No. Well, what I'm getting at is, if you had it and, looked at it prior, when did they get it? I mean, I'm not saying it was not ran through. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm just saying, did anybody get a copy of it, to look at it and, the conditions that, if you're wanting, are they in there then already? I guess that's what I'm saying,
Well, they did go through it in the, it was the ZBA meeting, I believe, a while back. They had gone through like point by point. Yeah.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So, okay. But then at the meeting, Huddy was there at, I just drew a blank, the Oasis, the last meeting. I know they did address the noise and how they were going to be berms, etc., landscape that. And I want to say, and don't quote me, so I'm going off of memory here, so forgive me. I think they were talking about the decimal levels and all that. So it's going to be low, but they were going to study that. I don't want to, I don't want to pick on anybody, but I do know that they were talking about it there. And I'm coming from the point of, we used to farrow to finish over 7,000 head of hogs a year. Okay. So I get noise, trust me. I do. But I do know they were addressing the noise at that last meet, or at that meeting that they were here for last time they were in Illinois.
Yes, because that was actually the meeting. I was also there, and I was the person who brought up about asking them to do the 24-hour reporting and would they look into it. But because of the moratorium, I haven't followed up with Pete or Greg to find out if they had looked into anything that I had raised about the Aurora data center. So I haven't heard anything back. I know our ordinance doesn't have any of the anything that
Yeah.
I suggested in it. It did have something in it, and I
But
don't
we,
know that it was enough about the noise. The noise was my biggest concern. And
well, we
All
could
that
have
HUD
put,
8 had to say was that whatever it was would need to be in the ordinance.
yeah,
That was their response to it.
meaning they would respect what the county wanted, then basically.
Pretty much like whatever was in the ordinance
Mhm.
was what they were
They
going
would
to
respect
stick
what the
with.
county, yeah. So then, okay, we coulda, woulda, shoulda. I know we cannot go back and fix history. You can't do that. But like Kevin said, we could have passed the ordinance and then put that into conditional use. Like, okay, now we're going to get stricter with you. You know, here's XYZ, ABC. And I did like Keenan's, when he changed a few of those things. I really do, and those were some good changes, I thought, on Thursday night.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. I went up to him afterwards and told him I thought they were excellent changes.
Mhm.
And I think he looked at it, I think, very intently.
He did.
Ahead of time. And he had all of these changes he wanted to make. And I feel like if every board member did that, I think there were more changes that could happen. And that's my concern with having voted it in. And I get your position on the conditional use permit. My concern is that when the conditional use permit comes around, we have some board members, and not even all the board members who are pro data center, but just some that look at that data center with money bags in their eyes. And I would be concerned with leaving it a conditional use permit for them to be restrictive on them without having it written into the ordinance, because they might say, well, we don't want to slip up and have and lose the money, and then we don't get the restrictions for Latham that they need. That's my concern with it.
Can I chime in?
Go ahead, Kevin.
So this is where I'm either going to lose some people or gain their trust. So a lot of people on Facebook are calling them bribes or whatever you want to call, but I have sat on plenty of voting sessions where, as you say, there's people looking at money in their eyes. And anybody that follows city council meetings, Rhonda in particular, she watches most of them. I am not afraid to speak up and say, I will not vote for this unless that's the way government works. So if they want to pass an ordinance and I'm sitting there going, there's not a noise study in this ordinance, so I won't vote for it, then it's my job to convince other people on the board not to vote for it unless there is a noise study. The reason you can't, and I'm going to reiterate again, the reason you have to start with a boilerplate ordinance and then put conditions based on the application. So I'm just going to play a stupid scenario here. Say they're going to buy 300 acres of land, but 100 acres of that is a lake. Then are you going to put what you would not put restricted water conditions on them because they're going to use their own water. I know that's a simple cartoonish way to explain it, but you see what I'm saying? You got to look at every application and every scenario of where it's being built and what it's going to affect, and then that's how you set your conditions based on that.
I would agree, but I guess where I'm coming from is that that would be in addition to. You'd look at the project and say, okay, where is our ordinance not enough? And say we need more, right? We need a restriction here. Whereas
Correct.
if we know from the jump that we don't want noise problems, then we put that into the ordinance, and we know that for every project, no matter what project comes through. That's my perspective, and that's what I would hope for, and what would make me feel comfortable in my line of work, and just from where I'm coming from for the data centers.
Yeah,
Because
I'm not disagreeing with the noise part. I'm
yeah,
just saying an ordinance in general, you okay, you put noise restrictions in the data ordinance and they're going to build it underground. There is going to be no noise. So you're going to not skip over, but you're not going to push that section of the ordinance as hard as you're going to push something else. So that's why I was very upset that the county didn't pass the 12-page ordinance that they had in place that would have then started. So if they would have passed the ordinance, you wouldn't have needed the moratorium, because then the clock stops until all the conditions are put in the application and the company meets all those conditions, whether it take 6 months or, one of the wind farms took well over a year before the conditions were put in and they finally met those conditions before they were allowed to construct. Now there's also gives and takes, as in, I don't know if any of you know about wind farms. The base of a wind tower is 100 trucks of concrete, but it has to be done in a continual pour.
Yep.
So you have to give the company leeway of, you have to meet all our conditions, but they're going to come back and say, okay, but on these particular days, we need to work 24 hours a day because we have to pour continuously without stopping, because we had lighting restrictions, like at night and stuff. So we had to lift those on certain days so they could do construction. You can't, that's where the lawsuits come into place.
right.
Is if you put a restriction that is so restrictive and ridiculous that they can't construct it or try to meet it,
Right.
that's where you'll have a lawsuit.
I
Yeah,
agree
I-
with Kevin.
I don't want to
I
cut
would agree
everybody,
too.
guys. I
Huh?
don't want to cut everybody off, but we've gotten like really far into the nitty gritty of the data center ordinance and that kind of situation, and we've been kind of a little bit further past the time frame that we were hoping to end this meeting. So what I would like to suggest is, I think that this meeting has demonstrated that there is a real need for possibly another town hall type meeting where we can get everybody together to specifically dissect all of the data center points, the ordinance, all of that kind of stuff. I just didn't want our Unity Coalition to just become, okay, let's talk about all of the data center stuff. I love the constructive conversation. I love people being able to share their perspectives and everything like that. This has been a very positive conversation.
Can I add to this? I think that's good. Can I just add a little bit, if you don't mind, divulge me? You know how we started out, what's important to us, listening to others, et cetera, your Post-it note behind you, your big Post-it note on the door. Can somebody, and hear me out, I'm going to fumble probably through this, so forgive me. It is very upsetting that some individuals are not showing respect to others, as you can tell in some of the comments on Facebook. And I know we're all about free speech, so hear me out. And I'm not saying try to control the narrative, but maybe direct the narrative. So say, hey, that's not a nice comment. Come on, let's knock it off. Or, I'm not trying to offend anybody, and I'm not trying to upset
I think
anybody.
I know what you're trying to say, Dara.
Thank you, Haley. You know what I mean? I'm like,
I think what you're wanting to see is more call to action of accountability against people who are going
I'm not saying
far
boot 'em out of
off the rail
I'm not
with
saying
comments,
I'm
but
not saying boot people off, and then people, if I approve a post, in my group, I'm going to pick on me. If I approve a post in my group And if I immediately turn off the comments, I start getting attacked. What are you doing? Oh my God, it's free speech. What, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, because there's some few bad apples. And, I'm just not going down that rabbit hole. If you want to read it, you can. If you have a comment, call the person up and tell them, or something like
Sure.
that. I just, and I'm not coming down on you guys and your groups. So that's not where I'm coming from. Where I'm coming from is reading some of these and I'm going, I've known you folks forever. I've grown up with a lot of you. And, please don't show this crazy, ugly side. You know what I mean? I'm rambling. Thank you, Haley. But that's where I'm coming from, guys.
Yeah.
Just,
No, I get it. But the real world, unfortunately, is ugly, and the real world is going
No,
to
I get
have
it.
people showing their colors and,
But can you
having.
guys kind of like direct things and go, hey, stop. Why are we saying, politicians are getting paid, or, that the group of individuals that met on Saturday and saying, hey, we need to check them out too for their financials. I'm like, oh, seriously? People just wanted to sit and talk. You know what I mean? And now we got
I think
people
if I
there's
putting
a lot
their
of
may,
pocketbooks.
distrust. I think
I
there's a lot of
do.
distrust. So we are allowing people to be able to just kind of vent that frustration and express that distrust. And personally, I don't
Hey,
particularly
Rachel,
enjoy.
before you continue really quickly, I'm really sorry to cut you off. So I do plaintiffs and defendants defamation work. And I want to say this by saying that I think what I'm about to say is going to be really helpful for everybody that runs a Facebook page, which is that I wouldn't want anyone to take on a responsibility that they're not legally required to take on. And I say that because if there was going to be a concern later that someone in a group made a comment and it's considered defamation, the person who runs that group is not necessarily responsible for someone else's comment. And each individual is responsible for their own. And if you
Thank
run
you.
a group, then you would like to turn the comments off, you can. And if you don't want to turn the comments off, you do not have to, because you're really just I can't remember the term of art, but you're essentially not the poster of the comment. You are just housing an ability for that the post or the comments to occur. And
Right. I'm
so
not coming from the legal side.
I
I'm just
will
saying.
right. I wanted to cut off Rachel really quickly because I didn't want her to, like, on a recorded thing, agree to something that she wasn't
Oh,
legally
no.
required to agree to.
No, I'm not
So I
trying to
wanted to cut her
agree
off
with
and let her know
anything.
really quick. Hold on,
No,
Rachel.
no,
Hold
yeah,
on.
it's not.
I gotta help
Yeah,
you.
Well, and
no,
going
that's not
with
what I'm
that,
saying. But it was just disheartening because, Kevin's on this.
Right.
Kevin's in this talking to us.
Yeah.
Kevin was there Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got folks saying, make him open up his financial. You know what I mean? I'm just kind of like, ooh. I'm not saying delete. Maybe say, hey guys, tone it down, or I don't know. But there's my 2 cents. Like it, lump it, don't like it. But we started
I
the
get where
meeting
you're
off
coming
really
from
good.
a person standpoint. I
Personally, yeah.
absolutely get where you're coming from. I
I
just
think,
wouldn't want
Hang
anyone
on, Haley.
liability.
Hang on.
I just wouldn't want anyone to have any liability for something that they wouldn't have had liability for
Oh
anyway.
no,
And
and
since
I
I
get
love
that. Yeah.
Rachel, I'm like, I got your back, girl. I have to tell you this about what your responsibilities are from a legal
No, and I'm
standpoint.
not asking her. This is a healthy conversation. Like I said, we started off, XYZ.
Right.
So let's practice that. I guess that's where also I'm coming from. Practice that.
I get it. I absolutely get it from a person to person standpoint.
and that's where I
Haley.
was trying to say is that I think individuals have a right to call out those abhorrent comments and suggestive things. Like individuals themselves can take it upon themselves and to take accountability for their peers and be like, hey, I get it, I get you're frustrated, but let's not feed into the rhetoric. But that's not the page's responsibility. That's us as a society,
So
peers,
let,
person
right,
to person.
right. So let's put it on there. Hey, let's practice some TLC
Yeah, I mean,
or just a quick
me
little.
and Rachel
Like,
can we can soundboard something to that effect later, just
mhm.
to be like,
I'm just throwing
hey,
it out there. You
if
know, I mean,
you are offended by something somebody else has said, or you feel that their actions or their statements are a little extreme, feel free to safely say, hey, tone it down, view it from this perspective. Me and
but the
Rachel will.
right, but the problem is
Mhm.
that you still keep coming. You still have some folks out there that still keep coming back radical, radical, radical. I posted a week ago a new cover photo, whatever, on
But we can
my
lead by
group.
example.
Well, no,
That's
this
what
one.
we're trying to do.
Well, what I'm getting at is I posted and it says something about mentality. You don't know what's going through somebody's mind. You guys touched base with that earlier. And I had Michael Chandler, because his comment's still there. He screenshotted it and posted on his Facebook page, which I don't care. I said, he says, "Oh, you're telling us to shut up." And I'm like, no, I'm talking about mental
Well,
illness. And let me finish. I'm talking about mental illness in that post on that cover photo. I have now had 2 individuals that I personally know in the livestock industry. One girl is 25 years old, been married 1 year. They found the suicide note and she died in a car accident on purpose. The other one was a 36-year-old husband, father of 2. Wife took the kids to the pig show. Hired man couldn't find him, found him, hung himself within 2 weeks. And I'm like, okay, mental. It's like, I'm just going to put that out there. We always have to bring mental illness, or not mental illness, but, everybody's mental awareness and be there for everybody. And so that's where I'm getting at, the attackness of we read into things, folks do. And I'm like, no, I lovingly called you out on it and he didn't like it, but I don't care. But anyway, so carry on. There's my rant. I'll be quiet. Sorry, girls. So
I
that's where I'm
appreciate
coming
that
from.
perspective.
Yeah.
I definitely do. And we're gonna we'll talk about it. Haley and I, my personal philosophy right now is I don't want to censor people's speech, and I think quite frequently in the comments there has been some peer check and peer review happening, and it's good to see. But my whole shtick here is we are trying to open up conversation and dialogue, and in doing so today, we were even able to get Kevin Bateman here to discuss this with us and everything.
Oh, did you
So
see where he's talking financials? I love it. Kevin Bakeman makes $175 a month as an alderman. There you go.
Mhm.
There's the financials. We can screenshot that and post that for those people wanting to see financials. Okay.
Thank you. Kevin, I'll let you speak real quick, and then we really do need to wrap this up. I've got some doggies that need some medicine tonight.
Okay, if you don't mind, I would like to address the Saturday meeting. If you don't want me to, I won't say a word. I would just like for you to hear
I
my
think I would like
perspective.
for you to maybe address that on your page or in a public statement or something where everyone can kind of see the benefit of that instead of just this small little focus group here.
That's fine. I mean, the FOIA request was shared. I don't know why everybody thought it was secret and we were planning something. It was literally, and I'll admit, Dale at the county meeting kind of snarkily answered the question, but it was just a few, I don't want to even say like-minded because we did disagree on a lot of things that Saturday. People that just wanted to get together without all the rhetoric.
And I totally appreciate
I didn't
that.
even know who most of the people were until they walk in and introduce themselves.
I really appreciate that, but I think that there is a big difference between just average everyday citizens gathering together for a conversation about these things and when there are a large number of public officials involved. And so that definitely ruffled some people's feathers. And I hope that maybe that will keep things, I'm sorry, I hope that maybe in the future, that will kind of be in the back of people's minds, so that when these conversations are being had, maybe they're being had in a little bit more of a productive and inclusive type of way that would help foster more of that community trust, especially right now while we're kind of floundering a little bit and struggling to find it.
But you do know that as an elected official, we are under very strict rules on how many people can sit and have a conversation without. So
Yeah.
if
I know
yeah,
that the OMA wasn't broken, but I think we can all agree that sometimes just because something is legal doesn't necessarily mean that it looks the best or that it's completely the right thing to do in that moment. So there are some people that think that that wasn't the best idea. And I personally, I am one of them. I don't think that this was the right time to do something like that. And I think if there was going to be a conversation had, it should have been done in a different way. And so I think that there are a lot of ways that hopefully we'll be able to bridge these gaps in communication and understanding, and we'll be able to get to a better place where everybody feels like we're a little bit more on the same page.
And
that's
Rachel,
fine. So just follow the lead of a perfect example is Coffee with the Mayor. So Coffee with the Mayor invites the elected officials, but then he also sends out a message to the other elected officials that you can't show up. You see what I'm getting at there?
Yes,
Yeah.
but you see that was also made public before it happens. The public knows that it's happening. The other officials know that it's happening, and when it is or isn't their turn to be included. So it's just there is a lot of nuance to every situation. And
Well, again, my involvement was an invite, and I only was told
I
of one
appreciate
other
that.
person that was going to be there, didn't know anybody else that was coming. It could have been 40 people for all I knew.
right.
All right.
And if I may really quickly, I think my issue with that meeting doesn't necessarily have to do with you particularly, Kevin. And it doesn't necessarily even I'm a little different than Rachel and some others where, OMA wasn't broken for me. That's fine. I don't mind if like-minded individuals and get together and have a conversation. My concern is when at least one individual considers that to be a meeting. And I don't believe you did, and I don't believe other people who attended that considered it to be a meeting of understanding what the zoning committee wanted to do. But in a conversation or in a discussion of at a public county board meeting, when asked whether or not th- that had been discussed, Dale did say openly, he's like, we discussed it this past weekend, but the question was about the zoning committee. And so that concerns me. And that's not a concern with you, Kevin. That's a concern with why is Dale being asked about a zoning committee, what the zoning committee thinks? And he said, we talked this weekend. Well, that wasn't the zoning committee who talked,
Well,
right?
he might have been referencing Mr. Noltzmeyer, who sits on the ZBA,
Right.
who was at that meeting. Believe me or not believe me,
I
99% of the conversation that Saturday was, I would say 60 to 70% of it was what restrictions that need to be in place. And then most of the people, Jim Drew and others, wanted to talk on how the county would spend the money if the data center was built, and that's where most of us all disagreed.
right.
all right. Well, thank you, everybody.
I'll be honest. My part was lift the 1 cent sales tax, which that affects every single person in this county. That I know it's only a penny, but think of how many times you go to the store and how many pennies are involved, and pay the bond off to remodel the courthouse. That is a drop in the bucket to what they're offering, but at least that affects everybody in the county, not just the people in Latham.
Again, Kevin, thank you so much for sharing that perspective and helping us understand, behind the curtain type aspect of those things.
Any of you can
And
call me anytime.
yeah,
Well, I shouldn't say that.
absolutely.
Anybody can call me anytime before 9 p.m.
So normal human daylight hours. We all have bedtimes.
But quite honestly, you
So-
can call me at 4 a.m. and I would answer the phone.
So Kevin, you're going to bed in an hour. Got it. So noted.
Correct.
So everybody flood Kevin's phone now in the next
Yes.
hour. No,
Yes.
just kidding. Please don't do that. We don't want to bombard him, at this very second. But anyways, it's been a wonderful opportunity to have a wide variety of people here in this group and in this to get things up moving in the right direction. And hopefully we can continue to have more of these with a wonderful opportunity for continuing, growth conversations and perspectives and be able to share perspectives that others may not have thought about, or even ideas for the community to help, bring up things that no one else would have ever thought about. So I hope that everybody takes that from this meeting, and that, next time we have one of these, please come back and bring a friend or whatever. I would love to see this grow and continue the movement and try to have a safe space to have some of these difficult conversations, as well as to share perspectives, to share experiences, and share ideas, and hopefully get some growth and perspective back in our community for love and community involvement.
Beautifully said. Thank you, Haley. I appreciate every single one of you guys for being here, for talking, even just for listening. And I'm hoping that we're going to make this kind of a monthly thing, and probably on a Thursday evening. And yeah, so if you are interested in joining our next meeting, if you have a possible speaker in mind, and it can even be you. I want to bring light to people that have had unique experiences and things like that. So I know that there's a lot of stigma around some topics and experiences and things like that. So if you have something like that you want to talk about and kind of shine some light on the ways that we can be more accommodating to people going through something that's maybe a really hard time, things like that. Or if you have a big life experience like some of the ones that I mentioned before, if you know of a faith leader that would like to talk to us, other politicians, I mean, anything that you might have in mind, we would love to have them just chat with us and see if we can't bring them in to be a speaker, so it won't always just be me that's talking up here.
When are you thinking about having another one?
The next one will probably be close to the end of July.
Okay. Just not during county fair.
No.
Okay.
No, that's a busy week for a lot of us. So it will definitely not be that. We want to have it in an opportunity that's going to be very opportunistic for everyone to be involved.
I had to make you all laugh. That's what I'm saying. So just
gotcha.
County and state
Sorry.
fair. No. And remember, county fair is a little later this year, so it got pushed back a little because state fair is a week later in start.
Really?
So county,
Okay.
yeah. Trust me, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So county is,
And then they moved the school start date up a week too.
So we'll be showing cattle when they do that. So county fair wraps up on the 9th, August 9th. So county fair is that first full week of August, not July, like it kind of usually is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then we move down to state fair on the 9th. So we go straight from county down to state fair. I'm just saying. I mean, don't ground my schedule. I'm just saying, girls. But anyway,
sure.
So let's do July. Yeah. But anyway.
I had a cat that desperately wanted in.
Oh.
I was like, it's got to be the cat or the dog. Which one?
Yeah. There's so many of them. Yeah, so we'll figure out a schedule. We'll make sure that absolutely everybody knows it. I will advertise the heck out of it, and everyone will know what's going on. So we'll make sure and try and work around the county and state fairs and all of that good stuff.
I'm giving you a hard time on teasing, but still, just say it.
Oh, I mean, we'll be very busy for the county fair as well, so it's always exhausting.
Rhonda, what do you think?
About
Life? You've been very quiet.
Oh, I was actually, I'm gonna be full transparency. I was listening to everything as I was editing.
Oh, I was going to say siesta, taking a nap. Okay, Rhonda, got it.
Nope, I was editing because but I heard it all and it was great. And I think it was, I think what Rachel intended this to be was exactly what it was. It was very respectful. People listened.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Very good.
You can go, sweetie. You don't have to sit here.
Okay,
Sorry.
y'all.
Have a good
I'm gonna
night.
log off. I am
All right.
exhausted. I'm ready for a nappy.
Oh, well,
Same.
you can come out and do chores with me. I have chores
Oh,
to do.
girl, I ain't never done a chore a day in my life. We are definitely. I respect you and what you do because I could never do it.
Oh, come on. You can have fun. So, all
I'll
right,
read a
thank
book.
you guys. Okay.
I'll supervise.
Hey, and Kevin, I applaud you. Very well done.
He ran away.
Oh, here I know. Kevin, very, very done. Well done. Proud of you, Kevin.
Not a
All
problem.
right. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, guys.